We don't forget. Excellent. Let me put this on to live Facebook. All right, guys, a question. Do you think it'd be better to put it in like the event section or the regular page, like the free Healthy Me community? Um, I'm not sure. Sometimes 30 people sign up and then 10 or 15 show up and come on. I'm not sure what would be easier for people. I'm recording these as well. And the original recordings, I give you 48 hours to look at them. So that's more than enough time. And I'll have these available if anyone wants them to pay for them for a cheap price. All right, Healthy Me first. Perfect, Gina. Let me project this on the Facebook while we're doing that. And let's see. Does day three gut health. And how the gut is connected to the brain. This is going to be a good one. All right. I'm just projecting this onto Facebook, so that's why we can have a second in between. Share on my group, and yeah, it wouldn't let me put it into an event section anyway. It has to go into the group. Free Healthy Me community, and this group community's grown, and I appreciate everyone on here for helping me. They say that your level of success or failure would be based on how many contradictions you have and how bad they are. And I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but if you want to be more successful in life, you've got to start removing contradictions. And this is what happened to me about 10 years ago. I was working up in Boston. I was getting up at 4:30 in the morning because we started up at 7:00 up there. And me and my wife wanted to buy a house. We had bought a rental house in New Bedford to start up so we could rent the floors, save some money, and then save up enough to buy a house. And then I was working another job up in Boston, far enough away that it didn't conflict with my office. And, you start getting up at 4:30 in the morning, and sometimes you go to bed at 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night. It catches up to you after a while and you start to get tired. Then you're not getting up early enough to get water and make your shakes and eat healthy. And then you start eating on the road, and then those egg sandwiches and those bagels taste pretty darn good. And then there's a Starbucks across the street in Charlestown where I was working, and people were very generous in Charlestown, not Charlestown, where I was, Beacon Hill. We worked up there. People were very generous. They'd bring in pastries and stuff, and not that they had a worry in the world. They had to have two nannies carry all their shopping bags as they were coming in to get adjusted. So that's the reality that they were in, but they were very generous getting stuff in. Long story short, started with more inflammation. I know that too much caffeine affects your breathing. So I know that I was probably being affected with my breathing, which you can get sleep apnea from too much caffeine. That makes you gain weight, cause more inflammation. And boom, you start to gain weight and you start to get tired, and then you start to have problems. And I was getting too tired. I was getting more putting on weight, and I was working. And then I went from like a 33, 34 to a 36, and the 36 started getting tight. And one day I come back to the office in New Bedford, and two people in that same week said, you talk a lot about health, Dr. Brian, but I don't want to be offensive, but you're starting to get a little bit large. And that really ticked me off. It hit home, like, you're right. And I had just come back from a seminar about being on purpose and how you got to remove contradictions. And so I'm like, all right, I'm a health doctor. I'm preaching about health. I should be healthier than the clients coming into my office. I should have more energy. I should be more fit. My nervous system should be functioning better. And that's when I started saying, you got to look in the mirror occasionally and say, Where am I at? Where's my, we call it facts in the group that we do. Where's your current facts? Not fiction, not, oh yeah, I have a gym membership. No, how often do you go to the gym? And what do you do when you're at the gym? And I know you have a water machine. When is the last time you've used it? And I know that you have a gym in your basement or a Peloton, but it's collected dust for the last year. So where's your facts? Where are you? My facts in the mirror is I was 235, 240 pounds where I should be 200 or slightly less than that. And I was getting tired and no energy. I was getting burnt out and exhausted. And I was making good money both ways, but I was paying the price on my health. And then I had to, we eventually saved up enough. I started taking better care of myself and started saying, you know what, I got to get to bed on time. And I got to get up earlier and I got to prepare and I got to get my stuff together at the night before. The car is packed with my bag to go. The coffee maker's set to on, so it's made by the time I get up. The shake is not made, but all the ingredients are in it besides if you have like frozen fruit or frozen avocados or whatever you put in there, the hemp seeds or the powder or whatever you're doing was all set to go. And the clothes were laid out and you buy yourself 15 minutes in the morning. You go, oh, I don't have time to work out. People have time. They don't make time. That's the problem. People don't make time. They don't have a system. And when you have systems, you stay on purpose. So I had to remove contradictions. I'm a health doctor and I have no energy and I'm tired. And now I could feel the pain and the backaches and bending over people all day. And, people aren't getting any smaller. They're picking people off the table and working on 40, 50, 60 people a day gets exhausting. And then I didn't have energy to do it. And I'm used to having energy all the time. As a matter of fact, in this group and in my group, even my wife had mentioned last night, in a nice, friendly way, man, you talk fast. Like you need to slow down a little bit. And I get excited. That's the problem. I get excited and passionate about helping people. And I get excited in my office. I get excited when someone comes in. Someone came in yesterday who had gone to other chiropractors, but hadn't gotten much results. And no one had done an x-ray. No one had done an exam properly. So I took an x-ray and I see what was going on. It wasn't her lower neck. It was up in the top. And I said, you have sinus problems? Do you have any clenching your jaw problem? Oh my God, you don't understand. I'm like, your problem isn't down in your lower neck. It's up here. And so we work on that. And you could see she was pale, the blood flow come up. And the first set I did, it went in nice and easy. And she's like, the other doctor could never get my neck to adjust. And I was like, maybe they're on the wrong place. We took the x-ray. It's not where your pain is. It's somewhere else that's causing that problem. And boom, there was a big difference. And so when you're focused and you remove contradictions, if I'm balanced and my nervous system balanced, it's much easier to help other people. And then when I'm healthy, we call it like osmosis or it's like contagious. Like the energy is contagious. They say that, being around Mahatma Gandhi and Mother Teresa, people would go there and be healed. Why? Because their energy was such at a high vibrational frequency that just being around them could heal them. That's the kind of that's the kind of goals that you want to get to, where the law of least effort, Dr. Chopra talks about in his book about the spiritual laws of success, is that you could have two kind of choices, like force versus flow. We try to force things too much. People try to force weight loss. They try to force health. They try to force things and cram, 12 ounces into an 8-ounce cup instead of letting things flow organically and naturally. I don't market this program a lot. Here's my indicator. If no one's sharing it, no one's talking about it, and no one's coming on my meetings, then my content sucks and I'm really doing a bad job. And if people start sending it to their friends and they start talking about it and organically people are flocked to it, that means it's in the right place and people are flowing to it versus forcing people to join. And that's what I like to do. And in business, the same, quantum physics works that way. The laws of attraction. If you want to see your current state of physical, chemical, and especially emotional, look what's attracting into your life. Do you attract difficult people or do you attract people that are easy to work with? That's the difference. I went to go get fertilizer today, and I had some pillars in my yard that need to be taken care of. And there was an engineer that put them in for the town. And I have been meaning to go over there because they're sticking out and I'm afraid my kids are going to bang into them. And I was hesitant to go over there. And I took a deep breath. Like, you could get a little nervous and anxious about talk. And I'm like, I'm going to get out of my comfort zone. And what is the old saying? How do you eat an elephant? Does anyone know?
Yes, I know.
How do you know? What is it?
One piece at a time.
Yes, one piece at a time. So I was hesitant, and I went by it, and I turned around. I got in the parking lot, and I'm like, I'm not going to think about it. I'm going to get out, and I'm one step at a time to the door. I come there, and the girl that's hard to come by happens to be there. And it's her husband, I think, or boyfriend, that they've started a company together. And I was talking to the secretary. The secretary happens to be his sister. And I'm like, I'm looking for so-and-so. And I have two things that I want to address. I want someone to come on my podcast because I heard this person's really good in town. And she comes out and, oh, really? I would love to do that. I've never been on one of those. And it just was. And then I'm like, after that, I'm like, oh, I have this favor to ask. And it was like taken care of instantly. Oh, I'm going to make calls. That's going to be taken care of. That's how things work out when you have anxiety or you have stress. Is you just do it one step at a time and you get out of your comfort zone. And the more you do that, like I was afraid to be in front of cameras. I didn't like public speaking when I started this. I knew if I want to get where I want to go, I have to become better at it. So what do you start doing? One step at a time, running the camera when no one's looking, doing the recording and looking back at yourself and like, oh my God, I'm going to crawl under the table. That's despisable. I was, how many as I said, and I rubbed my nose and I can't believe the dog ran by and my kid ran by in the background. You know what? We're all busy. We all have busy lives. So those things happen. Not a problem. So we eat an elephant one step at a time. I have some things that we're going to go over here, and let me share the screen, and we'll start with not this far part first. We'll start with this. So this is gut health, IBS, bloating, how the gut connects to the brain and the immune system. And I will tell you right now, if you're just watching this, you want to watch the quick over the 30,000 foot view of this, is that most of the gut problems come from stress. There's a gut brain connection that your vagus nerve controls your rest and digest system. That's your relaxed. So if you're in a relaxed state and your gut's working right, that probably means your vagus nerve is all right. And that usually means that your thoughts and your ability to handle stress is pretty good. And if that's not working very well and you're angst and you're tired and you can't go to sleep and your digestion is not working well, that's an indication that your body's not handling stress very well. And yeah, there's other factors like chemical stress and antibiotics and medications and NSAIDs, but the main problem is stress. And just remember, this is not a doctor-patient relationship. I do not treat, diagnose, or manage disease. Everyone that's doing this is doing it on their own just to learn some things about health. And if you have any concerns or problems, consult with your primary care provider or MD. A little bit about recap yesterday. Inflammation. Almost every health problem you can imagine at its most basic level comes from inflammation and a reaction to toxicity. And if you make more toxins than you can get rid of, your body either gets sick or stores it somewhere to reduce the toxic load. The immune system ultimately causes the inflammatory reaction. Sugar, bad lifestyle decisions and stress, or trauma, toxicity, and thoughts are what drive inflammation. And how can we talk about gut health without mentioning the nervous system? Well, I can't, because you have two parts to your automatic or autonomic nervous system. You have the sympathetic, fight, flight, and the parasympathetic, or the rest and digest. They can't be on at the same time. So here's a list of your nerves. You got all the nerves that go down your legs from your low back, down your arms from your neck. But this is the chart that I like to zoom in on. And this chart here shows that there's a green nerve at the top. That's the vagus nerve. That comes down. And the vagus nerve, or the parasympathetic green nerves, which are come out of your sacrum or pelvis and your upper neck. Notice how there's none that come out of the middle back and the thoracic and the upper lumbars. It only comes from the top and the bottom. parasympathetic. What does that do? Rest and digest. That slows down heart rate. That vasodilates blood flow. What does that do? More circulation and blood flow to all your organs. It makes your lungs dilate. What does that do? It causes you to take more oxygen and breath in. It activates acid to be produced in the stomach. It helps your digestive system work. The pancreas makes enzymes to break down food and insulin to transport sugar. And it helps you get blood flow to the intestinal walls to digest food. What happens when you have a lot of stress or you don't handle life and stress very well? It activates the yellow nerves. What does the yellow nerves do? They tighten up the arteries, higher blood pressure. They stop the stomach from producing acid. What does the stomach do? It digests food and it prevents parasites and bacteria and viruses from entering the body with hydrochloric acid. And what does it do to the intestines and the liver and the pancreas? You can't make digestive enzymes. The bile ducts get tightened, and then you get less blood flow to your intestines. What happens? You don't digest your food very well. You don't absorb the food very well, and it causes stress to your body. And then again, you're tired, but you can't sleep. You're exhausted. You don't make any energy because you can't sleep. Your immune system gets weakened. Your digestive system gets weakened. And eventually you could get things like this. IBS is in the colon. It's abnormal colon contractions. It's almost like fight flight. The body's tightening up. And that causes cramping, abdominal pain, could cause leaky, diarrhea. It could cause all kinds of problems like that. And it's not good for your health. It's toxic. And at that point, by the time you get IBS, you're not absorbing food properly. Why? Because you're getting abnormal colon contractions. It's supposed to be relaxed. The food's supposed to go through there with micro contractions. And I'll show you a little bit more. I have a bio detox presentation I did, which shows right here. I love this flow right here, but IBS is like this. This is a normal colon. This is what happens when you have IBS. You get tightening up and then you get bloating, which this balloons. And what happens? You get stricture on the bottom because it's supposed to, when this balloons and gets swollen, you get stricture down here. That tightens up. That means none of the food can get through there. Here's where you go to the bathroom. What happens? Constipation. Go to the bathroom every 2 to 3 days. Not normal, not even close to normal. I mean, people should almost go 2 or 3 times a day if they're healthy. And they don't because of this. And this takes a while. And then when this balloons, because the food's rotting in the intestines or the bacteria and viruses aren't breaking down the food, you get major gut problems. And then you get things like that. That's what like IBS is. And here's, the gut breaks food into nutrients the body can use. By the time food reaches the small intestine, the process is occurring on a molecular level. So it has to go through the stomach. And then the pancreas and the gallbladder release enzymes to break it down. Then it goes through the small intestine, which is for digestion and breaking it down. The large intestine is to absorb it. And then the bottom of the large intestine is to get rid of it. And believe it or not, your digestive system is considered external to your body, in the inside of it. Why? Because it's a tube that goes from your mouth to your butt. And your immune system can't get inside your digestive system. It's in the walls of it. Here's where the problem is. When you have food that you eat that's genetically modified, that's not good, that's processed and over-processed. You take medications that are toxic to the body. You take genetically modified wheat and corn, and it goes into your system, and that's included in the high fructose corn syrup that's almost in everything. What happens? When it goes into your gut's like, see, your gut's very smart. You have an innate intelligence in your body, which knows the difference between real and fake. It knows what it might taste like corn and wheat. And if it's not, your body knows the difference. And what does it do? It looks at it as a threat. It's going to try to attack it through the immune system. The immune system tries to attack it through the walls of the intestine. What happens? It causes irritation in the intestines. Now, you have a couple of things. You have mucosal lining, which is in the small intestine. The mucosal layer or intestinal lining is a layer of healthy gut filters out microorganisms and undigested proteins, which are then passed to the colon. And the villi, which are around here, are these little, to get more square footage. And then you have these little capillaries, which are the blood flow. So protrusions and the mucosal layer are covered by a barrier made of a row of cells. Nutrients enter the bloodstream through capillaries at the cell's base. So nutrients can come in through these little walls. So we got larger molecules like bacteria, viruses, and parasites, which aren't supposed to get into the basement membrane and into the bloodstream. Proper absorption. Desmosomes bind cells together tightly, allowing only small micronutrients to pass between them. That's normal. What happens when you get IBS, leaky gut, and swelling and bloating, and going back to that picture before, when you get this? Well, on the right, you start to get irritation, weakens these little desmosomes, opening gaps between the cells and letting larger molecules and bacteria pass into the bloodstream. And then it drives the immune system crazy because bacteria is coming in through your gut. And now the immune system reacts to that. Those are the beginning stages of autoimmune problems and weakened immune system. And then these bacteria or viruses, and viruses are smaller than bacteria are, they get into your bloodstream. And then the immune system starts attacking them. Now, viruses and bacteria are alive, right? So what do they want to do? They don't want to get attacked by the immune system. What do? They hide in organs. So they hide in your thyroid. They hide in your pancreas. They hide in your joints where they're trying to hide from the immune system. What happens then? Your immune system tries to go after them in the joints. Where do you think chronic pain comes from? That's where it comes from. Eventually, you can get damaged. Your microvilli in the intestines are damaged. And then what happens? More stuff leaks in through there. The gut doesn't absorb proper nutrients properly because it gets damaged. And now when you eat, you're not absorbing the nutrients that you ate, and you become malnourished and more toxic. That's basically gut problems in a nutshell. Now, when you come back to, how your body, the liver is an organ primarily responsible for modifying these toxins so they can be eliminated from the body, but your liver does a lot more. Your liver detoxes the body. Your liver converts non-usable hormones into usable hormones, and your liver is what's used to convert sugar into stored energy, which is fat, or fat back into used energy like sugar. It has to do all these things at once. So you drink some alcohol, some hard alcohol, you have too much toxicity, you have they say that women absorb 5 to 10 pounds of makeup through their skin in a lifetime or more. And it's all petroleum based. So you have to deal with petroleum products. Then you use aluminum deodorant, which stops you from sweating. Then you have all these fancy shampoos that have dyes and they make people smell nice, but they're toxic. And eventually our toxic load gets too high, and then your body has to figure out what to do about it. And these are just some examples of what caffeine, acetaminophen, aspirin, how they get converted to, acetaminophen, sulfate, and how the body has to get, basically, you start making free radicals, and then your body has to deal with these free radicals and these toxicities. And it causes inflammation, it causes gut problems. And here's the other problem. And when we go back to this, your organs and cells and your nervous system is like a circuit board. This is like a circuit board. So if your gut's always irritated, it keeps blowing out the circuits in here. And that's in your lower mid back, your lower back, your mid back, and it blows out the circuits. So the circuits don't work. Why do you think chiropractic is so effective? When we adjust people, we turn on these nerves back on again. And then the brain is like, my God, I'm not getting enough blood flow to my intestines. I'm not making enough digestive enzymes. My liver's toxic. I got to do something about it. And it starts to fix the problem. That's where getting chiropractic care comes into handy, is because it gets to the problem. But again, if the back keeps going out and people aren't getting better, now you have to say, why is that happening? Oh my God, their gut's a mess. They've been on antibiotics so often, and the antibiotics are in water. And if you drink tap water, they can't filter out all the medication at the water processing plant. Some of that gets into your water sources, and it causes toxicity. It causes drugs to get into your system. And we all, I mean, I have a water filtration system, but we still cook with water, and I can't use it all the time. And so some toxins get in. You have showers. If you don't have filters on your shower, some of those toxins are getting in. And depending on where you are and how toxic the water is, it can get pretty toxic. And so, do you want fast results? You need like 4 things. And I made this today. So this is brand new. Focus, action, simplicity, and tenacity or persistence. Do you want fast results? And we should do this with a period after each one. So you need to be focused on what you want. So who are you and what do you want? You need to be willing to take action quickly, which is, a lot of people have a lot of knowledge. They're aware that sugar's bad for them. They're aware that fasting could be beneficial. They're aware that they have gut problems and chronic pain. They don't take action very well. Or they're overwhelmed with too much information and they don't do anything. And simplicity, if you don't make this simple, you ain't going to do it long term. I'll tell you that right now. If you don't have simplicity and accountability, you ain't going to do it very long. And I would say that action or accountability, that's better, good too. Simplicity and persistence or tenacity, not giving up. A lot of people are strong starters. They're not strong finishers, which is why they always end up back where they started. And that's where routines and habits come in. So remove contradictions. And what makes the gut toxic? Medications, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, which are given out by candy. I think the United States takes in 75 to 80% of the world NSAIDs. And you wonder why we're such a sick country. It's toxic to the liver and the gut, and it destroys the mucosal lining, and it causes kidney and liver problems, emotional stress, how healthy and adaptable your nervous system is. So total toxic exposure, you got physical, injuries cause toxins, tightness, inflammation, too much exercise. A lot of people, they don't know how to deal with their stress. What do? They start running, like people who go do divorces and tough times. I mean, it's better than having a heart attack and dying, but they start working out like 2 to 3 hours a day, and they run 15 miles a day, and they do these long 50-mile runs. And eccentric exercise, too toxic to the body. Then we've got nutritional, preservatives and additives, alcohol, trans fatty acids. That's fried food and alcohol, preservatives and MSG and artificial sweeteners, and they add up. And then chemical, organics and xenobiotics and chemicals they put in the farm, and the genetically modified foods and the pesticides and the herbicides, which wipe out our chemicals. And then infections. We just went through a lot of stress, and COVID was nasty. I think, the way it looks, it was something that our body's not seen before. Obviously, the immune response was horrendous. And what really happened with people is they became so toxic, they got really sick. And that was a good indicator of how healthy or sick, how healthy you were. It's how sick you got. And that goes for bacterial, fungal, and parasitic. They act as hosts. They need healthy hosts, and they go into your cells. They basically take over your cells, and they make 30 times more toxin than your normal cells do. Parasites, bacteria, fungal, viral. And what they do is endo and exotoxins. And boom, you could have parasites in your intestines, funguses, bacteria, funguses on the skin, warts, toxic load. And then how can you start to reverse this? So that's the problem. What's the solution? High intensity interval training, if you're healthy enough, to decrease adrenaline, improving gut health, which is working on detoxes and cleanses to get rid of the bad stuff, and then rebuilding the good stuff with lots of probiotics and fermented food and stuff. We go into more detail in my, I'm giving you a broad oversight of this. In my programs, we can go over in more detail, like what exactly to do. What's your recommendations? Like, emulsified oil of oregano and time-released oregano, which bacteria and viruses hate. And there's certain supplements to get rid of the bad stuff. And then you got to stop feeding them their favorite food, sugar. When you stop feeding them, there's a die-off effect. They start to leave. And then when they start to leave, your intestines start to repair themselves and the inflammation starts to go down. And now you understand why people don't go on a program and lose weight. And here's the problem. If you force weight loss without getting to the real problem, you're going to get sicker, which is why I don't offer any fancy quick fix solutions, because there is none. What is polyvagal theory? That the vagus nerve has multiple functions and there's things you can do to make the vagus nerve function better, how to adapt to stress. That puts your body into a non-fight flight. There's breathing techniques, there's exercise, there's certain diets, there's certain, meditation and yoga and consistency. Doing these things will relax the system and cause it to get out of its stress mode or anxiety mode and into the parasympathetic, which is the rest and digest. And then when that happens, not only does your gut and your immune system work better, but your nervous system functions better. And connection between gut and immune system. So when the gut gets swollen, the immune system goes haywire. It thinks it has to do something about it. And there's a threat in there. What happens? Your gut blows up. It doesn't work. The bacteria, you get dysbiosis, which means the percent of bad bacteria increases over the percent of good bacteria. And bam, you get sick. We're not going to go over that. Supplements, there are supplements and detox and gut cleansing and improving microbiome, intermittent fasting. When there's less rooms for germs to grow, I'll just give you an analogy here of like a garden. If you have a bunch of weeds in the garden, you start to plant lettuce and watermelon, some of it might grow, but there's not a lot of room. Most people's intestines are filled with bad bacteria. And not only do these bad bacteria affect the gut health, but from what I've read, a lot of your neurotransmitters are created and stored in your gut wall, like amino acids or proteins like tryptophan and arginine and theanine are converted to dopamine and serotonin, which are the feel-good hormones and the alert hormone neurotransmitters. And what happens when you have a whole bunch of bad bacteria? Those bad bacteria say, I want to feel good too. I'm going to eat your dopamine. What does almost everyone who has depression or anxiety have in common? And kids with autism and kids with focus problems and social anxiety, they have horrible gut problems. So they have to be addressed if you're a child or if you're an adult, you have to address that. And what is biohacking? Let's go into this a little bit. Can you optimize your brain and body and how it functions? How about the order you eat food in, when you exercise, what time you go to bed, like what kind of lights that you're around? Are LED lights just because they're 90% and they produce 90% less energy? Does that mean they're good for you? No. So biohack is the art and science of changing the environment around you and inside of you so that you have more control over your biology or more adaptability. There are ways to do this, different types of exercises. Some people just go to the gym and they do cardio. Great. I'm glad for you. Not going to get you where you want to go. You have to work on adaptability and also not doing the same thing. Your nervous system is smart. It gets used to the same thing. You should rotate through supplements. Take five days on of supplements and the weekends off. Then your body doesn't get used to it so much. There's a biohack that's free for you. A lot of people, they become ineffective. They're taking too much. You know how many times I take x-rays of people and they're like, what the heck is that? I'm like, there's all your undigested vitamins and minerals that you take in supplements. Why? Because your gut's so unhealthy. You're not absorbing any of them. They're just going right through your system, and you're paying all this money for nothing to get absorbed. And if you're not buying supplements from a reputational company, they have a lot of gluten in them. And you could be getting gluten and fillers in your vitamins that are causing your gut to have problems. And not every supplement is good for you. I had a girl, about last year, lesions on her skin, and couldn't figure out why. And she did my program, and we were trying to figure out, I'm like, maybe you need a fit test. Fit test is a food inflammation test. So we sent her for a blood test. They're a little expensive, a lot expensive, $400, $500, but it gives you it tests your blood against 156 things: herbs, spices, supplements, MSG, glucosamine, the common things that people take, MSG, artificial sweeteners, all the spices like curry and oregano. And she was allergic to turmeric. She was taking turmeric for inflammation, and it was causing her to break out, and no one could figure it out. The test came back that pineapple and something else was highly sensitive, because they test your blood and they see how your immune system has a blood response to it. She got off of that within 2 or 3 weeks. All of her problems in her skin started going away. And that's when you start to measure things. I don't do this for everybody, but there's ways to do it. If you have problems, and you might have to pay some money, but at least you know what you're sensitive to and not. So so biohacking, you can hack in how you work out, how often you work out, how much water you should drink, supplements that work and are effective, pH levels, reducing our toxic load from electromagnetic fields. We're in an electronic world. Ever want to read a book called The Body Electric, how electronic devices, Wi-Fi units, routers, TV screens, computers, and I think that book was before cell phones came out, and how toxic cell phone towers and cell phones are. These are hidden health problems that might be causing you a lot of problems. And sometimes a light canceling pair of glasses works out. I'm working on making a biohacking kit, which has like my favorite probiotics, some light canceling glasses, and some other things that are biohacks into the system to help people with some of the common things that are going on with them. And anything that helps the parasympathetic system work optimally has reduced stress. High fats block the multiplication of viruses and bacteria and gives them nothing to eat. What does that mean? Well, when you start to do a metabolic shift diet, which we talked about in day 1, when your body starts metabolizing fat, your healthy cells can burn fat or sugar. Guess what? Viruses and fungi can't. They can only burn sugar. What happens when you stop giving them their favorite food? They can't live. So anything that reduces an immune inflammation response. How about this? Did you know sunshine turns cholesterol into vitamin D? People's cholesterol goes down in the summer. And vitamin D boosts the immune system. Why do you think during this time of the year, now everyone's starting to get COVID again? Do you think COVID just hid in the closet and now it's coming back out again? No, people's immune systems are getting weaker again because they're getting less sunshine, because already the sun's going down earlier. They're not out in the summer. They're starting to wear longer sleeves. And in New England, from October through March, you need a supplement with vitamin D. And the amount that they tell you, 400 IUs a day, is not going to cut it. You get about 25,000 IUs an hour from the sun. Just do that for size. And they say, well, vitamin D is fat soluble. You can get sick. Yeah, you can get sick from it. But I've never seen anyone test for too high of vitamin D, but I've seen a ton of people test for too low of vitamin D. And they say that low vitamin D levels are more like almost the guaranteed that if you have too low of vitamin D, you're going to get sick. It's one of the best things you can do to not get sick and help your immune system and your mood. So that's it for there. I'm going to stop sharing that. And what I'm going to do is come back to the people that are on here. And I'm also going to take a look because if anyone came online and wrote in anything on our live, no, I don't think anyone wrote in anything. If anyone's listening online and they have a question, you can. If not, we are pretty much good for today, except for the fact that, you got to work on your gut. So as you could see, health is multifaceted. There's not one thing that you do. It's the inch by inch, it's a cinch. And if you don't make it simple, you won't do it. So what do? You start with simplicity. You start with little baby steps and you say, all right, of all the things like intermittent fasting and gut health and liver, and we haven't talked about mitochondrial optimization. We haven't talked a little too much about epigenetics. We haven't talked about, longevity, and there's so many things and how stress affects us, but try to simplify and start with one thing, little baby steps. And if you're having trouble, I do have programs available for people that are having trouble. I made them pretty affordable to do a 3-month program. It's like $397. So it's like, a little bit more than $100 a month. But, you get a one-on-one coach, you're going to be paying $100 plus a session. We have a group session. If you want one-on-one, I have some options available with people. These groups are accountability. They're not just educational. Every day I get up and do a 5-minute video just about on something we're going to talk about, the thought of the day, what you're going to work on today, action steps. We're going to start with a little challenge of, an affirmation challenge in quantum physics. When you affirm something, you're talking to your subconscious mind. That's where a lot of people are programmed the wrong way. They react to stress. They see the world through their lens and they want to change the world, and they're angry if the world isn't changing. Well, guess what? The world doesn't need to change for us. We need to change how we react to the world. And that's when everything starts to change, because that's the only thing you have control over. You don't have control over world events. You don't have control over what happens in the world. You have control over how you react to it. Those are the things. Supranuclear palsy. She is the most stressed person I've ever known, and think that cumulative effect on her whole life is tied to what? Yeah. So in that kind of case, gut health, working on repairing the brain and the synapses and the neurotransmitters, and working on the gut health. And again, from a chiropractic and from a holistic doctor perspective, progressive supranuclear palsy, we don't treat that. Just like I don't treat Bell's palsy, but I've seen it go away. And I don't treat fibromyalgia, and I don't treat Crohn's disease, and I don't treat MS, and I don't treat RA, and I don't treat all these other weird ones that I've seen lately, which is, it's concerning at how many new ones are starting to come out and how they screw up your brain. Because when your immune system's attacking your body parts, it's producing a ton of toxins, and then the toxicity gets into the brain and the brain can't function right, which is why when you start with intermittent fasting and longer fasting and working on your gut health, the first step is you produce less toxins. Then when you start to feed your body more healthy fat, it starts to repair the nervous system and the cells and the brain and the chemicals, which help make your body run. And then you get more mental focus. Your parasympathetic nervous system calms down, and then your body starts to try to heal whatever's wrong with it. And, I want to get shirts that say, expect miracles. That's one. And the power that made the body heals the body. That's our favorite quote in chiropractic, which is, your body has the ability to cure incurable diseases. Maybe medicine doesn't. Maybe chiropractors don't, because we don't cure anything. Your body does. So I don't know a lot about that, but I'm sure if I looked it up, you're going to find out that it's linked to gut, it's linked to inflammation, it's linked to toxicity and stress. And then when the body's under distress, it doesn't work right. And then it's self-perpetuating, which means the less ability you have to deal with stress. And let me see if I have a thing on my gap. I know it's under, let's share screen again. Let's go to this, and let's go to this, share that. And I know that under my cost of stress right here. And this was a presentation I did in 2018 on the cost of stress and how, I was put on this earth to accomplish a certain number of things. Right now, I'm so far behind, I will never die. The different types of stress, but that's not what I wanted to go to. I want, thoughts. What if you were looking at health the wrong way? And is an emotional distress and anxiety and being stressed an automatic reaction, or is that a reaction to something else? And here's what I think, the 5 P's of prosperity. Well, you need procedures, but that's not, where is it? It's under GAP. I seen it yesterday, unless this is the wrong one. Stress statistics. That was sad. How stressed out we are. Here, the GAP. This is what we're trying to do in this program and every person I deal with. General adaptability potential. When you're healthy, you have this much ability to deal with stress. As you start to eat worse, not exercise, not get enough sleep, and what are you struggle with? So let me take this camera off and go over to here. So what do we got up here? What do people struggle? Tired, fatigue and tiredness, brain fog, trouble sleeping, cravings, unhealthy carbs, bloating, stress, headaches, sore joints, chronic soreness. What happens? Every time, the 6 essentials of life, what you eat, drink, exercise, rest, what you breathe, and what you think about, they all go in. And every time you don't eat good food, your adaptability goes down a bit. And then you don't get enough sleep, adaptability goes down a bit. And you don't drink enough water and you drink toxic beverages, goes down a bit. Eventually, you only have this much wiggle room, this much ability to deal with stress, not this much. And what might happen right here? This is where you start to get aches and pains. This is where you get migraine headaches. This is where you get fibromyalgia. Then we're down here is where you start to get what you just mentioned, Gina. And then down in here is the autoimmune, the chronic debilitating diseases. And then of course, the big ones, cancer, heart attack, strokes. When your body has no more adaptability left, boom, now it's down in here. It can't handle anything. Anything that happens is a stress, which is why some people are too sick to exercise. They're toxic. And that's what happens. So, and we got people on here. Oh, I was on the wrong screen here. So the cost of stress, that's what happens there. So very interesting. Let me stop that share. Oh, not a new share. Stop sharing. There we go. So again, do not cure that disease, but we try to get to the cause of it. And again, the body doesn't need help. It just doesn't need interference. If we could find out the stimulus that's causing something, or at least how to make the body healthier. And that's why I looked for a name for my program and I called it the Healthy Me, because that explains it. We help people get healthy. And the side effect of being healthy is that your body starts to fix whatever's wrong with it. Now, these aren't overnight fixes. The worst, the problem, it could take 3 to 4 years of healthy eating to start to reverse that. So where do you start? Baby steps. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. What do? We work on lowering the toxic load, eating half the amount of sugar. And we start there. The real problem with a lot of people is the neurodegenerative diseases, because if you've got dementia, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, if you've got, chronic stresses, what happens is your brain's not working properly. And it's actually the immune system starts attacking the brain cells and they're making them toxic, and they really have a problem. The good news is that our bodies have an amazing resiliency that can heal, but the things have to be done in the right order. And what happens? They hardly ever do that. Doctors always recommend pills and they diagnose people with these problems, and they never try to fix what caused the problem. How do you get, a problem like that? Progressive supranuclear palsy. Most stressed person you ever known, and think that. Yeah. Yeah, you don't have to know the cause. Just know that I don't think the body ever makes a mistake. It always reacts perfectly to what's going on in the world. So is high blood pressure good or bad? It's good. if you're in the woods getting attacked by a bear, you better have enough blood pressure to push blood into your arms and legs so you can run and fight. But blood pressure is not good when you're sitting relaxed in your couch and your house. So what is blood pressure? A lot of problems in the world are timing problems. It's normal to have high blood pressure when you're getting attacked by a bear. It's not normal on the couch. Just like it's normal to produce a lot of acid when you eat food. It's not normal to produce acid when you have no food in your stomach. What's the difference? A timing. If the stomach produces acid when there's no food in it, it eats the stomach. If it produces acid when there's food in it, it digests your food. So it's a perfect reaction. It could be at the wrong time. So the body, when you build, it's obviously trying to protect something. You know, they say proteins and like fluoride causes you to get calcification on your pineal gland, which helps you make melatonin. And so that's fluoride. That's people have sleep problems with too much fluoride. And the dental industry never wants you to know that because they're trying to prevent cavities and they don't tell people that, but everything has a side effect. Back in the 50s, there were billboards. My doctor smokes Camels. Cigarettes weren't good for you. They didn't think they were bad for you yet, but then they found out. And this is the problem. And I don't want to rant on, but this is these are some of the problems in the world. And these need to be talked about. And that's why I started a podcast. That's why I started a free health program. And that's why I went on to bigger, paid health programs, because people need help and they need accountability and they need to do the work. And they find out that they have to do the work when they don't want to do the work. So then you have to ask yourself who you are and who do you need to become to get what you want. And a lot of people say, well, they want you to look at where you could be in 3 years, what your potential is. I don't like to look at that. Pain and suffering could drive people's motivation more than where they're going to be, which is, if you're this bad now, do you want to be this way in 3 years? Do you want to be back to your old self? Because it's not going to get better on its own. It's probably going to get worse. What are you willing to do about it? What are you willing to do about it? What are you willing to give up? The old Eric Thomas video, which is he's a motivational speaker, and he was at the beach one day. Not him. This young kid in town keeps asking all these people, like, how do I be more successful? And he says they said, you got to talk to this old guru in town. And I gave the story in the beginning. You know what? I'll share that video with the group instead of me saying it. He says it much better than me, and I don't want to waste your time because I got to get going with the lawns and I got a lot of stuff to do, and I got to reseed this summer. And after the summer, I got burnt my lawn, but lots to think about. Simplicity. Try to find one or two things, intermittent fasting, and work on getting that down first, or drinking more water, or halving your carb intake, and get that down first, and then start working on the next thing. And then what'll happen is we try to work on things in, like, you have a pillars of health. You can't just build your physical fitness up and neglect your chemical and emotional stresses, because the pillar is going to be lopsided and it's not going to work out for you. And you can't just work on your mental health and not be physically fit and work on your diet. You have to work on your physical, chemical, emotional, and we'll call it the spiritual. Those are the 4 pillars. You have to work on all 4 together. And that's where meditation and yoga and Pilates and journaling and articulating your thoughts, and then working on your diet. And simultaneously, just like when you go to a good financial advisor, what do they say? You need to get rid of your debt and save retirement together. You don't do one or the other. You need to do them together. And that will help to find balance. And then when you start paying off more of your debt, you can use more of that money for cash flow to build up. Same thing happens here. You find one that's easier to do and you start with it. Intermittent fasting, eating less sugar, how to eliminate cravings, and eating more healthy fat. And then you work on the next thing, and then you work on the next thing, and then you progress. And that's kind of what we're trying to teach here, is progression and action steps, and taking action is more important than knowledge. And then Focus, what you focus on grows. Simplicity and then persistence. Consistency over intensity, being consistent in what you're doing, getting into someone who holds you accountable so you can do the work, because that's when people happen. That's what happens to people. They don't do the work and then they don't have the results. And so I guess we'll end it with that unless there's any other questions, but good luck. And it is a neurodegenerative disease and there's way more out there. Someone needs to ask the question, why are all these people getting sick? And why is there so much neurodegenerative disease? Is it from electronics? Is it from stress? I'm sure it's from all of it and you can't pinpoint it on one thing, but you can minimize the effects of it if you're healthier. And that's what I'll tell you. Anyway, thank you so much for listening. If you're watching this on the replay on Facebook, type replay. And if you have any questions, leave them in there. I'll look out over them later and answer them. Thank you, everyone.